Bear or man? A question that should never have been asked. Part 1. The question that escaped the internet. Chapter 1. The question. The question arrived the way most bad ideas do. Quietly, confidently, and with the full support of my own stupidity. It was a Tuesday. Nothing dramatic. No thunder. No warning from the universe. Just a phone on a table, a half-drunk coffee, and the internet doing what it does best. Introducing ideas that feel harmless until you say them out loud near other humans. Would you rather be alone in the woods with a bear? The question read. Or a man? I laughed. A small private laugh. The kind that means you think you understand the joke. At this point, I still believed the question was harmless. This belief would not survive the afternoon. I read it again. Bear or man? Woods implied isolation. Alone implied danger. It was obviously exaggerated. Obviously hypothetical. Obviously a setup for banter. The bear, after all, was a bear. Big. Clawed. Famously uninterested in dialogue. The man, statistically speaking, was probably just some guy. Possibly wearing hiking boots. Maybe even polite. The joke, I assumed, was that no one would choose the bear. That assumption was my first error. I showed it to the producer. He read it once, then again, slower. His face did something complicated. Not laughter, not concern. Something between a yawn and a migraine. Why? He asked. For fun? I said, which is what people say when they haven't thought about consequences. For whose fun? He asked. I hadn't considered that either. The camera wasn't even on yet. This is important. There was no pressure, no performance, just the question, floating between us like a balloon tied to nothing. Let's ask people, I said. Just casually. This was my second error. We did not prepare. We never prepare. Preparation suggests humility. We brought a microphone, a camera, and a confidence that was not backed by experience. The plan, if it can be called that, was simple. Ask the question. Capture reactions. Laugh. Move on. Reality would later describe this plan as optimistic. The first person we asked was a woman sitting on a bench, scrolling on her phone. She looked up, mildly annoyed, the way people do when they're interrupted by strangers who believe they're about to be charming. I delivered the question exactly as written. No embellishment. No irony. No wink. Would you rather be alone in the woods with a bear? Or a man? She didn't laugh. This surprised me. I waited for the laugh. There's usually a laugh. A small one at least. People laugh to buy time. People laugh to soften edges. She did neither. She thought. Not long. Not dramatically. Just enough to make the silence noticeable. The bear, she said. Immediately. There it was. Clean. Efficient. No explanation. No apology. I assumed she was joking. Really? I said, which is what people say when they believe disbelief counts as a follow-up. Yes, she said. The silence that followed was not awkward. It was instructional. It was the kind of silence that forms when a room realizes it has accidentally learned something. I laughed then. Not because it was funny. Because I didn't know what else to do. Why? I asked, already regretting the word as it left my mouth. She looked at me, considered something privately, then said, because with the bear, I know what it wants. She went back to her phone. That was the moment the question stopped being theoretical. I turned to the producer. He did not look at me. He was watching the woman walk away, as if hoping she might turn back and clarify. She did not. Well, I said, stretching the word thin. That's one answer. That's an answer, he said. Yes, we asked another person. Then another. Then several more. The pattern did not adjust itself to my comfort. Some laughed first, then answered. Some answered, then laughed. Like people stepping away from a small fire they hadn't noticed they were standing in. Some didn't laugh at all. Some asked follow-up questions. About the bear, about the man, about the woods, about whether they could bring a phone, about whether the man knew they were alone together, about whether the bear had seen people before. No one asked what the man was wearing. This detail stayed with me. By the 5th answer, I stopped counting bears as anomalies. By the 10th, I stopped pretending to be surprised. By the 15th, I realized I had made a classic documentary error. I had assumed I was filming a joke when I was actually filming a mirror. Men reacted differently. Men reacted loudly. Some scoffed. Some laughed too hard. Some immediately began explaining bears to us, as if we were moments away from wandering into Yosemite with a picnic basket. One man told us about black bears versus brown bears. Another discussed attack statistics. A third insisted the entire premise was unfair, which suggested he believed questions should be morally balanced. One man asked, "What kind of man?" This question did not help him. I noticed something else. When women answered bear, they often did so calmly, casually, as if choosing a seat on a train. When men heard the answer, they reacted emotionally, as if a personal accusation had been lodged somewhere behind their ribs. "I wouldn't hurt anyone," one man said, without being asked. Another said, "That's insulting." A third said, "This is why society is broken," which felt ambitious for a bench conversation. I nodded a lot. I nodded like someone trying to remain neutral while standing in the middle of a road. At this point, I still believed neutrality was possible. The producer began stepping back during interviews. Slowly, deliberately, like someone distancing themselves from an unattended suitcase. "Maybe we shouldn't," he started at one point. "Just one more," I said. This was my 3rd error. By mid-afternoon, the bear had developed a reputation. People described it as predictable, honest, straightforward, dangerous, yes, but transparently so. The man, meanwhile, had become hypothetical in ways that did not flatter him. "It's not that men are worse," one woman said carefully. "It's that I have to think about it." This sentence landed differently than laughter. I realized then that the humor wasn't in the answers. It was in my expectations. I had brought a party trick to a room full of lived experience and seemed genuinely confused when the room declined to clap. I watched the footage later that night. The pauses were longer than I remembered. The looks exchanged between strangers were heavier. There were moments where I could see myself nodding, smiling, filling space that didn't want to be filled. I looked like someone trying to host a game show that had accidentally become a confession booth. The bear, notably, never appeared. And yet, by the end of the day, it had won. Not by argument, not by force, by silence, by consistency, by the simple fact that it did not require explanation. I went to bed that night thinking the same thing over and over. The question wasn't funny. My certainty was. And tomorrow, inexplicably, I plan to ask it again. 2. I ask it out loud. The first real human reaction, and the first mistake. Chapter 2. I ask it out loud. The first real human reaction, and the first mistake. The problem with asking a question out loud is that it stops belonging to you. In your head, a question is soft, adjustable. You can revise it mid-thought, add disclaimers, pretend you meant something else. Out loud, a question becomes a physical object. It leaves your mouth. It lands somewhere. Sometimes it breaks something. I learned this immediately. The first time I asked it out loud, properly, with intention, was not on the street. It was worse than that. It was in a room with people I knew. People who had already agreed to be near me. People who trusted me enough to sit down. This matters. We were in a kitchen. Neutral territory. A safe space. There were mugs. There was casual leaning. Someone was halfway through telling a story that did not deserve to be interrupted. I interrupted it anyway. "I've got a question," I said. This sentence is never a good sign. Everyone looked at me, mild interest. No alarm. Yet. "It's just a hypothetical," I added, which is what people say right before detonating something. I asked the question. I didn't rush it. I didn't soften it. I delivered it cleanly. the way you would read a multiple choice option on a form. Would you rather be alone in the woods with a bear or a man? I smiled at the end. This was instinctive. I smile when I think I've said something playful. I smile when I want approval. I smile when I don't yet understand what I've done. The room did not smile back. What happened instead was a brief, collective pause. Not silence exactly. More like buffering. Everyone's face changed slightly, but not in the same way. Some looked inward. Some looked at me. One person looked at the floor, as if the question had dropped there and might roll toward their feet. I waited. Someone laughed. Too fast. Too loud. The kind of laugh that exists to fill space, not joy. "Oh my God," she said. "That's awful." This was not the reaction I'd imagined. In my head, people laughed and debated lightly. In reality, the laugh arrived carrying a warning label. "Well," I said, "because I am nothing if not committed to momentum." Another mistake. "The bear," she said. Just like that. Not dramatic. Not angry. Almost bored. There it was again. The answer I had already heard earlier that day, now sitting in a different room, on a different tongue, with the same weight. I reacted badly. "Really?" I said. Again. This word continued to haunt me. "Yes," she said. Obviously. Obviously is a dangerous word. It implies shared understanding. It suggests the only confusion left in the room belongs to you. "Why?" I asked. I had not yet learned when not to ask why. She didn't answer immediately. She glanced at someone else in the room. A look passed between them. Not a dramatic look, just recognition. The kind of look people share when they've already had this conversation privately and are deciding whether to have it again publicly. "Because with the bear," she said slowly, "I don't have to negotiate." The word negotiate hit the counter and stayed there. No one spoke for a moment. Not because the room was stunned, but because the answer had closed something. Like a door gently pushed shut. Someone else spoke up then. A man, friendly, well-meaning, already leaning forward. "But not all men," he began. The sentence did not finish. It trailed off under the collective weight of the room. No one interrupted him. No one needed to. He stopped himself, which somehow made it worse. "I mean," he said, restarting, "you'd probably be safer with a man, statistically." Statistics had arrived. This is where I should have stepped in. Redirected. Lightened. Changed subject. Instead, I nodded. I nodded like a host encouraging discussion, unaware the game had changed. "What do you think?" I asked someone else. She sighed. Not heavily. Just enough to register fatigue. "Can I choose the bear without having to explain myself?" she asked. The question landed cleanly. No punchline. No sarcasm. Just a boundary. "Of course," I said quickly, because I suddenly wanted to be reasonable. "Then the bear," she said. The producer, who had been quiet until now, shifted his weight. I noticed this in the corner of my eye. He does this when he senses structural damage. "I don't get why this is offensive," another man said. "It's just a question." This sentence is also never a good sign. "No one said it was offensive," someone replied. Calmly. Too calmly. "It's just revealing." Another word that refused to float away. At this point, the kitchen had stopped being a kitchen. It had become a forum. An unplanned one, with no agenda and no exit strategy. People spoke more carefully now, as if stepping around something fragile on the floor. I watched myself in real time, doing the thing I do when I'm uncomfortable. Explaining. Filling. Justifying. "I just thought it was interesting," I said. Like, psychologically. Psychology is often used to launder bad timing. I didn't think it would turn into... I gestured vaguely at the room, which was now quietly rearranging its understanding of me. One woman looked at me then. Not unkindly. Not accusingly. Just directly. "Did you think people would choose the bear?" she asked. I hesitated. "No," I said. There it was. The truth, finally said out loud. She nodded. Not in triumph. In confirmation. "That's why it's funny to you," she said. The sentence wasn't sharp. It didn't need to be. It settled somewhere behind my sternum and began unpacking. The conversation didn't explode. It didn't evolve. It simply changed temperature. People finished their drinks. Someone checked the time. The story that had been interrupted earlier was not resumed. It had lost its place. Eventually, the group dispersed. Normal goodbyes. Polite exits. No dramatic fallout, which somehow made it worse. Afterward, the producer and I stood alone in the kitchen. "Well," I said, because silence felt dangerous. That escalated. He looked at me the way someone looks at a person who has just tried to microwave foil. "You asked it out loud," he said. "Yes," I said. "That was the idea." "No," he said. "That was the mistake." On the way home, I replayed the moment again and again. Not the answers, the assumptions. The way I had believed the question belonged to me, that I could guide it, control the tone, decide when it stopped being funny. Questions don't work like that. Once spoken, they choose their own path. They expose the shape of the room they're in. They reveal who feels safe answering and who feels tired explaining. I had wanted a reaction. I got one. Just not the one I'd imagined. And the worst part was this: I still wanted to ask it again. Not because I thought it was harmless anymore, but because I could feel it working. The first real human reaction had arrived, and I was already making plans for the second mistake.